I'm going to show you how to replace and install a pressure regulator valve. This is part of a multi-video series, some basic plumbing work. The purpose of this pressure regulator valve is to prevent the kind of knocking that you hear from radiant heat systems in the wall. You can see here the adjustment part of it has broken and it's in the fully open position, and it was not leaking until I kind of fiddled with it, and now it's leaking out of the top O-ring. Glycol's coming out. So the first thing we're going to do is turn off the gas, turn off the switch power, and turn off the breaker. Always important to do before you work on anything electrical and anything gas powered. If you've been watching the other videos in the series, you've seen that this whole 17-year-old system has just been kind of falling apart as I've been working on it. So yet another thing we need to replace before we get to the actual problem with the boiler. The first thing you're going to want to do is isolate the pressure regulator by closing the valves below it, making sure it is completely powered off. You want to isolate the pressure regulator so that when we cut this out, we're not having glycol and the water just spewing everywhere. So I cut it out. I had to cut out the valve too, so I actually isolated at the manifold itself. Luckily the one end did screw off, but then you had to cut it out. I couldn't add any more plumbing pieces to it because it was so crowded. But the plumbing was so tight to begin with. So here we're just soldering a nice connection. This is just soldering a new valve and the regulator in. All we're doing is putting the flux on the inside, and then you heat it up, then you get your solder, the flux kind of sucks that solder in, and now we have a secure connection with the plumbing. This is not that hard of a process. You just got to do it a couple times for each various components. You can see we got a new valve in there, we got the new pressure regulator, and it's screwed in just fine. A couple of those solder connections are pretty ugly, but it is in fact sealed. So we're going to turn the power back on, also open up all the isolation valves, and we're going to turn the gas back on, the breaker back on, and we're going to try to run this again. So just like in the last episode, boiler turned on thanks to the new transformer. And unless that pressure regulator valve was completely clogged, somehow restricting the flow, which I highly doubt, that is not going to be the problem. So I waited and I waited. I watched this thing run, and wouldn't you know it, it ran for about 10 to 20 minutes again and then shut off and would not turn back on. So we're going to get to the real problem in the next episode. If you found this content helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and watch the next episode.